Okay, so for my study comparison, it was on postpartum depression and exclusive breastfeeding, exploring a future for mother and babies. I looked at two different studies. The first study was done to assess the association of maternal satisfaction with breastfeeding and symptoms of postpartum depression in the first month after childbirth. And the other study looked into the comparative risk for postpartum depression among new moms who stopped exclusively breastfeeding before 6 months compared to those who continued. And it also looked at the mediating roles of social support. These were both cross-sectional studies done, and I picked the first one as the better study just because of how they collected their data, and I will get more into that later. So the design of the first study was took 287 puerperal women selected in Porto Alegre, Brazil, from one private and one public hospital. They interviewed at their homes after the 30 days of life of the newborn, and they used the maternal breastfeeding evaluation scale and the Edinburgh postnatal depression scale. They adjusted for maternal age, skin color, cohabitation with the infant's father, planned pregnancy, type of delivery, exclusive breastfeeding, and breastfeeding problems. So this had a really huge control rate of what they controlled for, so I thought that was a good part of the study, along with the diversity of the different hospitals that they selected the women from. And doing face-to-face interviews also helps gather data, and this one was really measurable data as well. The second study took 426 mothers in Bangladesh, and they looked at 6 months postpartum period. They also did face-to-face surveys using the Edinburgh postpartum depression scale, Cohen's perceived stress scale, and social support scale. And they controlled for age, education, and residence, so whether they were in rural or urban. The findings from study 1 found the prevalence of increased satisfaction with breastfeeding was 47% higher among women who screened negative for postpartum depression when compared to those with a positive result. So this basically just means that when women were more satisfied with their breastfeeding experience, they were less likely to experience postpartum depression. Study 2 finds that non-exclusively breastfeeding moms were 7.58-fold more likely to experience postpartum depression, and social support and maternal stress mediated and substantially moderated the relationship between exclusively breastfeeding and postpartum depression. So both of these studies found similar things. They just looked at it differently, and study 2 looked more into other factors that played a role in postpartum depression. So the validity of these studies. Internally, study 1, the sample size was smaller, but the interview questions made it measurable, and the way they collected their data, I think, made it good internal validity. Externally, both of these had really good external validity because other studies have found similar outcomes. And for study 2, internally, the larger sample size made it the validity higher, along with the different questionnaires making it more measurable. So both of these studies were good. Just study 1, I thought, did better at gathering their data. And for further research, both of these I would just like to see more of a longitudinal study done to follow women throughout their whole year of postpartum to see how things change and how their experience with breastfeeding changes along with postpartum depression symptoms, since as we're learning that those can show up within the whole first year after birth. These are my references, and thank you for listening.